This is Zentreya, a cyborg from the future. And she's also a dragon. Vtuber stuff, it's complicated. And this is Matara. She is Zentreya's wife. Or at least that's what she says. I'm making a fan game based on Zentreya's and other Vtubers lore. And it is time to add a new boss fight to the game. I've chosen Matara as the perfect Vtuber for the role. In this video I want to show the process of making a boss for my game. I won't go crazy into detail, otherwise we'll be here forever, but it might give you an idea of how these things work. Also, I may or may not sound confident, but 99% of my knowledge comes from YouTube tutorials, so don't trust me too much. First things first, my game is 3D, so we need to turn Matara into a 3D model to put into the game. I cannot draw to save my life, but I can do some basic low poly stuff in Blender. That's why all the games I've made until now have been 3D. I won't start Matara's model from nothing though. For all the characters in this game, I start from a base model that I made. We just need to add everything specific to the character, like the hair and clothes. I'll start by modeling the shoulder pads and the bow. I also started adding seams, those red lines all around the model. Those are used for texturing. The reason I'm doing them at this moment is because I want to see which details of the clothing I will make through texturing and which ones I will have to model. Once I add all the seams, it's time for the UVs and texturing. I don't even know how to explain what UV unwrapping and editing is. I think I don't even understand it. And on top of that, there are different ways you can approach texturing. If you've seen game character textures, they probably were something like this. When you work with the UVs, you are separating the model through the seams and then positioning these UV sections on top of the texture to determine how the model will look. Well, this is the texture I'm using. Looks nothing like the other one, right? In fact, this texture is so simple that it's 32 pixels wide. It's incredibly small and efficient, and it's great for low poly models. The downside is you can't add too much detail. Either you will have to modify the model by adding more edges, or you will have to model the details as separate objects, like I did with the shoulders and bow. I do have a separate detailed texture for the face. Here we have all the different expressions for the character. For now, we'll place the UV on the first expression. Step 1. Add a circle. Step 2. Add a path. Step 3. Lower the resolution preview, otherwise you will end up with a trillion poly count. Step 4. On the path settings, under bevel, toggle object and assign the circle. This is a very useful and easy technique, and we are gonna use it for the hair. We are going to add a bunch of paths to act as hair strands and carefully position them around the head. We'll only do one side and use a mirror modifier for the other. You may notice the point where all the strands connect looks very messy, but luckily Matara is going to wear a hat, so nobody will know. In order for the hair to properly export later, it cannot stay on this path state. We have to select the option to convert it into a mesh. Once we do this, it will become way more difficult to change the hair, so I only do this once I'm sure I like how it looks. As it is right now, you can see each separate strand of hair, so here's a trick we can do for that. We are gonna use a data transfer modifier and use the normals of a sphere on the hair. You don't have to understand what that means, I surely don't. With this, the hair will look more even. Now that the hair is done, I added the hat. I then used the same path technique for the antenna. One more thing we can do with paths is Matara's claws. I tried modeling them at this point, but I was not too sure how I was going to create the serrated tips. So I decided to leave it for later and move to the next step. The standard rig is something that I should have in my base model, but I don't, so we must do it from scratch. We add a single bone armature and make our way to the head. Add a separate bone for the upper leg and extrude towards the foot. Same for the shoulder towards the hand. Then we select everything, click symmetrize, and we're done. Now comes probably my least favorite part of the entire process: weight painting. This is how we tell Blender which parts of the model will move with which bone. Again, there are several ways of doing this. There is an automatic weight option, which allocates each face of the model to a bone by proximity. But every time I've used it, some part of the model moves weird and you have to manually fix it. Then there is weight painting, like literally painting. First, select one bone, then using this brush-like tool, paint the parts of the model that will be linked to this bone. Then repeat for each bone in the armature. I despise weight painting. It drives me crazy, and I can never get results I'm satisfied with. But luckily, there's another way. We'll use vertex groups. Again, I am not too sure of the science behind this, but each bone of the armature has their associated vertex group. We can select faces on the model and assign them to a vertex group. Don't get me wrong, this is still annoying to do, but I will do this 1,000 times over weight painting. After we're finished, the model should move when we move the bones. I will say this is a part of the process I need to improve, because there are parts like the hips and the shoulders that move weirdly. I'm probably doing something wrong thanks to my lack of knowledge, or maybe the topology needs some tweaks, I don't know. Luckily, the other objects, like the hat, are way easier to rig, since all the objects will be assigned to the same bone. Next very important step, inverse kinematics. There are quite a few bones here. Moving them one by one would be really tiresome. But with IKs, we can make the arm bones follow the movement of the hand, so we'll just need one bone to control the entire arm. And the same applies to the legs. We have one bone on the wrist and one on the elbow. The wrist bone will be the control or target, and the elbow bone will be the pole. We add an IK constraint to the lower arm bone, assigning the wrist and elbow bones correspondingly. We set the chain length to 3, so the IK will affect 3 connected bones and not affect the entire armature. Sometimes you need to adjust the pole angle too. Then we add a copy location constraint to the hand bone, targeting the lower arm bone. This is so no matter where we move the wrist bone, the hand will stay connected to the body. We do a similar process for the legs, and then select everything and symmetrize for the other side. With this setup, animating later will be way easier. Speaking of which, Matara is going to be a boss on my game, so there is a set of animations she needs because all bosses need them. I should also have those on the base model, but whatever. Then there are all the animations I will need specifically for the Matara fight. I have a clear idea of what the fight will be like, so I kind of know what animations I need. Each different animation is created as an action. Then you just move the bones in place and insert keyframes. I don't know how to explain it, it's like you make different poses and then Blender will take care of moving between the poses. For looping animations, it's nice to displace certain keyframes a little, like the hands and the head. It gives the animation a very nice feel. Once I had the default boss animations, I thought I should figure out the claws before continuing. It took me a few tries, but I finally got something I liked. Then I repeated the process of rigging for the claws, adding new bones, assigning vertex groups, and adding IKs. This is where the armature started looking like an absolute mess. At some point I had to change the bone display from orthogonal to sticks, which I've never done before, but now I kinda prefer it like this, so I think I will always use this display from now on. I duplicated the claws and bones and just rotated them to make the rest. I had to adjust them a bit, but it worked. Then I just added keyframes for the claws on the animations I already had. Finally, time for the Matara exclusive animations. I wanted to use the claws as much as possible, and it proved to be a challenge. I think the most difficult one to make was the one where she's hanging from the ceiling and moving. You'll see what we'll do with this one later. Model is looking nice, but remember, this is for a game. We need to get this out of Blender and put it into the game engine. In this case, Godot. How do we do that? Well, first, on Blender, export as GLB. Then, grab the GLB file and drag and drop it into the Godot editor. And that's it. If you double click the file on Godot, it will open the input settings. Here we need to extract the materials. This way we can modify them whenever we want. Also, we must toggle which animations are loops. We may need to extract some of the animations if we want to add more keyframes. For example, remember the face texture I used with many expressions? On the face material, we can change this property called UV offset to change Matara's face. We can even add this property as new keyframes to change her face on certain animations. Now, how do we turn Matara into a boss? Well, I made a generic boss script that takes care of most things a boss can do. We need to add some extra stuff for it to work. I also created the scripts for each attack Matara will use. Technically speaking, I could throw Matara on a stage already. She will have her health and hitbox, but we need to code the attacks for her to take action. Each attack script inherits from a generic boss attack script I also made. So for each attack, we only need to code the specific movements and animations that will compose the attack. First attacks I made were climbing and dropping. Matara will climb using the banners on the stage, which, by the way, I also started working on the stage scenario at this point. Then she will move through the ceiling and attempt to drop on top of the player. Next, we're going to use Matara's trusty fans, the Momos. Matara will either throw them or send them to chase Zentreya. For this, we're going to use another generic script I made called Projectile. Again, we only need to code how they're gonna move. Finally, Matara will summon the mightiest of Momos, who will roll across the stage using the same projectile script. Also, during this whole process, I was adding details during the attacks, like sound effects and visual effects. And that's it! To be fair, I put a lot of work on the stage, boss attack, and projectile systems when I started this project, so I could easily add the bosses later. Maybe some other time I could go into the details of the code. For now, I just trust those scripts will do their job and the boss fight will run smoothly. That was a lot of work, and I'm not even done. Some of the attacks still need adjusting, the scenario is not completely done. This game also has cutscenes, by the way, and unlockable power-ups. And more importantly, this is only one boss of the many I want in the game. If you reached this point of the video, thank you so much for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could let me know what you think about this Matara boss, what you think about the game I'm making, and about this video. Did you like it? I hope you did. You can play this game, by the way. There is a demo right now on my itch.io, link in the description below. The full game will be finished and released one day in the future. Trust. Of course, be sure to check out both Matara and Zentreya on Twitch. They're both amazing, check them out. This is not a suggestion, do it. Well, that's all for now. I have been Toson the Viper. and hopefully I'll be back with another video soon. Bye bye!